everyone. So as we are coming together today, those of us who are on site here are up in Collegeville at the Episcopal House of Prayer, a very familiar space to some of us, and a brand new space and a brand new experience for some of us. And today there's a very, very gentle, almost snow falling here in Stearns County, and it's absolutely gorgeous. It's very, very quiet today. Part of the reason we were able to reserve the house today for this retreat is because it's Easter weekend. I thought, why is that sweet weekend available? How come no one's taking it? I was like, oh, Easter weekend. Buddhists have no problem finding retreat space on Easter and Christmas and, oh dear. So this is Easter weekend, and we don't really have Easter as such. In the Zen tradition, and we also have Easter all the time, so it's a little confusing to talk about, because the idea of death and resurrection, or death and rebirth, or birth and death, is central to all traditions, actually. If we're honest and we look really deeply at every spiritual tradition, one of the primary missions of a religious structure is to help us understand and relate to birth and death. One of my favorite sayings is, we have religion because we die. And I think that's probably true. We probably wouldn't need religious structures if we weren't mortal, and if, maybe more accurately, if we didn't know that we die. Maybe we have religion because we know we die. My cat does not need religion. Right. Because cats don't know that they die, but we do. And so the idea of, is there something that exists beyond birth and death? Is there a field in which birth and death play, is central to all faith traditions. And on the way up here today, I saw, I don't think I've ever seen this before, but I saw billboards, the digital ones that can change often, 3 different digital billboards that obviously were sponsored by local churches, having some sort of acknowledgement of oh, happy Easter, he is risen, or something that would be around hey, come for Easter services at our community. And when I do interfaith work, and I'm speaking at a college or a high school, or I'm hosting a group, or doing something around trying to give voice to the Buddhist tradition and taking questions, one of the first questions I'm almost always asked, regardless of the age group, they always want to know about reincarnation. They want to know about birth and rebirth, or birth and resurrection, or death and resurrection, or that idea. They really want to know, what does the Buddhist tradition have to say about that? And I'm usually as non-committal and avoidant as possible, and quickly move on and go, let's just not go down that road, please. It's way too complicated and way too blah, 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 blah. But there is something I want to offer, because it is Easter weekend, and I want to offer the saying. A lot of you know it because it's a very, very old, Zen, I guess, truism. 4 words: life is not killed. It shows up in some sutras. It shows up in a lot of talks. It shows up in a lot of commentaries. It's referenced in a lot of different ways. Life is not killed. Which is kind of what Easter is, really, right? And so I'm tempted not to say anything more about that, because I kind of don't want to ruin it. But I can tell you, when I first heard that, it was in a funeral setting. The Zen priest, a visiting Zen priest, actually was doing an eye closing, a funeral for somebody. and quoted "Life is not killed," and I thought, that's the dumbest damn thing I've ever heard in my life, especially at a funeral. Clearly, we're here because somebody got killed. Like, right? But of course, as usual, once my ego is done having its little temper tantrum, which, happens with frequency, and especially in that setting, then all of a sudden I realized, actually, this is a perfect setting to be introduced to that idea. And I kind of want to describe it as a koan, but I also don't think it really is a koan. I think there's just an invitation to look really, really deeply at the word choice. I don't know the words in the original language this teaching would have been given, but life is not killed doesn't take away death. It just takes away the absence of life. And that sounds kind of like I'm just playing with words and trying to be clever, and I'm really not. But when someone learns they're pregnant, yeah, right? Or we're invited to the marriage ceremony of the third cousin who we haven't seen in 5 years, but we better go because grandma's going to be there, and so we feel obligated, and we go, and we sit there, and we roll our eyes, and then they get to the part of the service where they exchange vows, and all of a sudden we're crying, going, it's happening again. It's happening again, despite everything. Despite all the headlines that I read all the way between me and that church, and my despair, and my heartbreak, and my grief, and my fury, and all my suffering, here it is again. Here it is again. It's amazing, isn't it? It just keeps happening. It just keeps happening. And even though it's snow out the windows that I'm looking through today, we could feel it, couldn't we? Like a couple weeks ago, that first 70-degree day, that first day when you go, winter's back is broken. It's going to hang on for a couple more weeks and screw with us, but this is the deal. We know the deal. You can feel, like in the DNA of your body, the inevitability of spring. You can't stop it. It's unstoppable. And yet for the past 6 months, it's been awfully convincing that all those trees out there that I'm looking at were dead. It sure looked that way. It very convincingly looked that way. It very convincingly looks that way now, but I saw green buds, and it's like, ha ha. That's amazing, isn't it? Life is not killed. I grew up Catholic, and so, we celebrated Easter every year, of course. You got to go, and you got to go on Good Friday, where death is placed in the foreground. Right? That's a death story, And then 3 days later, you go to Easter Sunday, and then birth is placed in the foreground. Rebirth, reincarnation, the spring is placed in the foreground, And I want to talk about it that way. That's kind of what I want to talk about, is when we are doing meditation in the oratory there, or at home, or your Zendo, wherever it is, one of the ways of understanding mindfulness, if we use that word today, mindfulness, is I'm just making a choice about what I want in the foreground. Does that make sense? Like, I'm going to take a photograph of my friend there and click, and so he's going to be the foreground. He's the object. He's the subject. He's the thing that I want, right? He's the figure. And in the background, there's the windows and there's the forest, and that kind of stuff, right? That's the background. So the figure, and then the ground is behind it. We all understand this. We all understand, even if we don't think about it much, when we're driving up here today, those of us who commuted to this space, where the traffic was, where the next exit was, where the foot was on the accelerator, that was in the foreground. I have to pay attention to that. And in the background is the cloth moving against my skin, and my breath coming and my breath going, and thinking about the niece who's really, really excited that she's pregnant, and thinking about Monday, I've got to make sure to send that email to Joyce so that I don't, right? Does that make sense? We just go, it's in the foreground, and then there's all this other stuff in the background. So when we're taught meditation, usually we're given something to put in the foreground. Put your breath. in the foreground. The experience of having a body, put that in the foreground. When it vanishes or moves or you get distracted, put it back in the foreground again. Or, depending on your meditation tradition, the next bead, the prayer, the sacred word, the mantra, something. Give yourself something. The candle flame, give yourself something. Because the rest of your life is going to keep happening. And we just want to help you be present to that life. And so we're going to give you one thing to pull into the foreground. This is how meditation's usually taught. Give yourself something. Mindfulness of breath, let's say. And so when I start to wander away, it's like, nope, there you go. It helps you locate yourself. I'm going to put it first. And as time goes on, of course, we become better, don't we? We just have a stronger muscle, our attention. And our intention becomes stronger, and we get better at holding it there for longer, choosing when we want it there. Wow. It's quite a powerful thing. And so death moves into the foreground when someone is really, really sick, or they go into hospice, or they die, and the rest is in the background. And then we hear the story about the engagement, or the birth, or we're starting a new business and we just got our grant, it was approved, right? The Artemis launch was successful. It was exactly as they hoped it would be. Whoosh, and you go, oh, it's starting again, the beginning, Then that moves into the foreground. So the reason I'm describing it as figure, ground, foreground, background, is because this is how we understand birth and death. One isn't present in the absence of the other, one just moves forward. Right? We understand those 4 astronauts are going to die. We hope they don't die in the next 8 days, but they're going to die. Like their parents died, and their grandparents died, and their great-grandparents died, and their kids are going to die, and their great-grandkids are going to die. That's the deal. They've got a pretty unique perspective. That thing just keeps spinning. That thing just keeps spinning. It just keeps spinning. And yet right now the beginning part is in the foreground. So when you get distracted in that oratory and you locate yourself again by going, oh, I wandered, I came back. Can you feel that there is a moment of unconsciousness there of I'm not, and then I'm back. It almost is. I don't know how it is for you guys, but there are times when I almost feel it viscerally, like I've been daydreaming for 10 minutes and I didn't know that I was daydreaming because, of course, I was daydreaming, right? It's like falling asleep. You believe the dream and then something happens, the bell rings or something, somebody next to you coughs or something, all of a sudden, I'm back. Someone's like, oh, right, I'm in a body. Oh, right, I'm in an oratory. Oh, right, Stearns County. Oh, right, Episcopal. Oh, right, I'm meditating. I wonder why I chose to do this today. Shouldn't I be at home? How come I'm not? The whole deal, right? But isn't it almost like birth and death? Falling asleep, waking up, going away, coming back. I love that Buddha moment, that awakening moment. You go, oh, I'm back. If you're like me, you spent or are spending many years criticizing yourself as soon as you reincarnate. And that moment of coming back, oh, I'm back. Oh. So I don't know. Maybe I'm unique. I don't think that I am. I'm glad to say that for many of us, and myself as included, after a while that becomes a lot less nasty, and it really does become this again. Oh, I remember this. Yeah, this is okay. In all of the infinite universes, there is only one thing not subject to destruction. Have you realized that? That's a very old koan. Those are my words, but that's a very old koan. Life is not killed. The body comes and the body goes. What doesn't come and go? Everything you can observe is subject to creation and destruction. Who is the observer? All the variations on that koan. One of the things I actually like about the Easter story is that when the body is gone, we have the idea that unencumbered by the Jesusness of having a body, the Christ is just there, right? Which is pretty cool and kind of abstract, at least if you're a little boy sitting in the pew and wearing polyester pants and trying to understand this whole thing and really being bored and wanting to go home and eat chocolate until you barf. But as an adult, looking back on that, I'm like, oh, the coolest part about that story is he wandered around and no one recognized him. And I'm like, how many folks don't recognize this? Like, don't recognize this. There's something really important in that idea for us. There's a lot of folks who have been inside that oratory space and who describe that oratory space as a sacred space. Right? So what I want to remind you of is, no more so or less so than the space you're in now, no more so or less so than the car you drove here in, no more so or less so than the bathroom you're going to use. The reason I'm saying it that way is because when you go, that's a sacred space, you are referring to the experience that you are having. It's calling, but you have to go, hello, got it, copy, message received. And not everybody who walks into that space walks out and goes, whew, that's a sacred space. No, it's just a building. And it's a weird building because it's round, but it's square on the outside and there's these weird awkward corners and it's trying to be round, but it's trying to be square. It's weird, right? And I know you've had that experience because you've gone to the movie that moved you to tears and your friend was bored. Do you get to say that's a sacred movie? My point is, this is the part that went, I see it. That's just a catalyst. That's just the catalyst. And your next breath is the catalyst. There is only that. There is only that. So if you wake up and if you have that, I see it, can you feel that's your capacity to see it? It's not like it's ever absent. I love the Easter myth, but it's not like it happens one day a year and it's somehow localized in space and time, at least not from a Buddhist point of view. It's like, that's a great story, you have all of it right, just don't imagine that it's bound by space and time, because then you ruin it, because it's happening now. How could it not be? Did you watch the end of the last breath? It disappeared forever. It was air until then. And then you went, and it became finite. And it was warmed by your body. And it moved into every single cell. And it became you. That's not abstract. And then, what, right? That's why we have different words for it. It's air. Now it's breath. You can feel that. Wow. There's my wake-up call. I can feel it. I can notice that. That is absolutely a moment of death and resurrection. Death and resurrection. Going and coming. Can you feel the golden thread that binds all those things together? My timer went off, so I got to wrap up. Each breath is born when oxygen enters us and becomes us. Each breath dies when we let it go, back into infinity again. The trees die in autumn and are reborn in the spring. Great-grandparents die and the new generation is born. The sun goes down and the sun comes back. The moon dies and is reborn every 28 days. Death and resurrection are a standard spiritual trope. Isn't your breathing today literally taking part in the dance of the infinite? It rushes into you pretending it's you. You're animated by it. You let it go. Isn't this practice as simple as recognizing a breath as a single wave, rising up from the infinite ocean, becoming us, and then disappearing again? Isn't death and rebirth just making a fist and opening your hand again? Isn't it just recognizing a thought as a thought, and then remembering the infinite field behind it, from which the thought arose and then vanished back into. How do we imagine that we are separate from the miracle when our very bodies are participating in it as it without ceasing? How do we live without recognizing the miracle in us as us? So, I'll end by just inviting you for the rest of our time together to just be aware of what you have in the foreground and to make that a choice. The foreground can be the experience of breathing. The foreground can be thought. The foreground can be your food. You know, we eat in silence, right? So it gives us a chance to be present to the experience of watching something go from being separate from us to not being separate from us to becoming the cells of our body to becoming us. That's a brilliant communion, and there's a chance to be present to that in a way that you don't normally have. And so that can move into the foreground. And your life and your death and your body and your family and your karma and all that can be still background. It's still happening. It's okay. It's dynamic functioning. It doesn't need us to take care of it, which is a relief. Kind of the way your life is taking care of itself, even though you're on retreat. Can you feel it like it's still happening back there? You feel like we've stepped outside of it? And then you'll go back into it in 6 hours? Oh, the truth is, you're just moving this now into the foreground. But the dynamic functioning is just fine. So just pay attention. Just notice today what you choose to hold in the foreground, what you notice. Maybe it's a Good Friday day for you and death is in the foreground. Maybe it's an Easter day for you and joy and hope and renewals in the foreground. Maybe neither. Maybe both. Either way is fine. But when we're the field of awareness that recognizes that, it all becomes meditation in a secular sense, but it all becomes blessed in a much larger sense. The reason we experience that oratory is sacred because the sacred part of us rushes forward and blesses it. It isn't sacred without us. So watching that part of ourselves rush toward our experience today, that turns footfalls into lotus petals and turns a snack bar into a communion and turns an oratory into a mountaintop. You carry that with you everywhere. It's never absent. So I'm glad you're here today. I'm glad we're all here today. I'm glad we all get to be together. And I'll stop talking. But I'm really grateful that I'm with folks today that are making the choice that they are to observe the life that is not killed. It's a beautiful offering. So thank you. Thank you.